How about her?
This is where we get really, really relevant. The last two are so relevant, but they have less. These now have less in them, like less points. So I'm going to do one. I'm going to do the number, and then I'm going to introduce all of the sub points to that number so that we can talk about it all. Because the sub points are really more explanations moving forward of like what this is.
Okay.
So deception, deliberately withholding information, distorting information to make it more acceptable, and systemically lie to the cult member. This goes back to what I was saying about the things that can happen to you during pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had commented, somebody had said, like, I can't, it's been, my son's a year and a half old, I still can't feel my stomach after my C-section. Well, I knew about the nerve thing. There's a lot of miniature nerves that are around that area that they can cut, because a C-section is going through 7 layers of tissue, right?
Okay.
You're bringing your organs out, they're removing a child from your organ, and they're putting it back. And some mom was like, oh, well, actually, a lot of moms can't feel their stomach. And I'm like, that's probably because 50% of you or more have had a nerve cut. They're doing this in an emergency situation. They're not being super careful about it. They're trying to save you and your child at most points by the time a C-section is done, right?
Yeah.
They always prefer natural birth to C-section. Unless you have severe tocophobia, then sometimes they will schedule it. Or if someone doesn't want to do a VBAC birth because they had a C-section for their first. VBAC is the term for when you give a natural vaginal birth after having a C-section, but it's a lot riskier because your uterus was taken out of your body. And she was like arguing with me, and I was like posting all of these like links to like, no, like, look, I have like actual sources from like medical doctors who are writing about this. Mm-hmm. And she was like, well, you're not a mom, so you wouldn't know.
Right.
I'm like, I'm trying to help you, lady. Then she said, and I said, you need to see a neurologist, because neurologists handle the brain, the spine, and nerves, right?
Yeah.
She said, by the way, you wouldn't go to a neurologist for a C-section. You would go to a gynecologist. I said, yes, if you were having a problem with your lady bits. But if you're having problems with your nerves, you need to see a neurologist.
Mm-hmm.
It's like she was trying to one-up me so bad, she wasn't even listening to what I was saying. I was trying to help her. But it's like, as soon as you say I'm child-free, and immediately, well, we're not interested. And this goes back to the whole parents getting mad when child-free people offer parenting advice.
Right.
I saw on Twitter the other day, I think you probably follow her, but she's a neonatal nurse. And she was saying how, like, parents will literally give birth to their first child, not know how to change a diaper, and not listen to her advice once they ask how many kids she has. But she takes care of infants for a living.
Right. And that's kind of standard. We've had this guest came on our podcast. They remained anonymous, and they are I can't remember what they are professional wise, but they are medical doctor, but they work with kids, and it's a specialized field. And this person is also child free, and that is, for the most part, there's not a lot of pushback, but it still happens because, and this is where I do tread a little lightly on my opinion, and who is qualified to speak, because to me, just because you have children does not give you that automatic qualification in anything. To be honest, I mean, not really.
This is why I have it out for quote unquote hashtag autism warrior moms, because they support Autism Speaks, which overwhelmingly autistic adults, autistic teenagers, autistic people who are old enough to make their own decisions. Autism Speaks does not have one autistic person running that organization. We really overwhelmingly prefer Hassan, which is the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, because it's autistic people who are studying.
Can I ask how is that possible? I mean, I know how it's possible, but why is that not called out, or why
it is in our community?
Okay, but it's continuing though.
A lot of parents with autism want a cure,
but to not have anyone who's actually autistic in the organization,
that's why you've seen me use the actually autistic hashtag before.
Yeah,
that's why we use it, because we want people to know that we are autistic people, and there's not, if a parent has an autistic child and they are also autistic, they don't believe in ABA. ABA shouldn't even be legal at this point. ABA is child abuse. I was never put in ABA, number one, because I was late diagnosed, but my mother.
Sorry, did you explain what ABA is?
It's a type of behavioral therapy meant to make, it's basically conversion therapy for autistic people. What people don't understand is that autistic people, our brains light up different. Like, we just have a different way of processing information, and that's fine. We have a different way of communicating. I can communicate with nonverbal autistic people by looking at them.
Interesting.
I know immediately when someone is autistic. You don't even have to, we don't have to speak.
Yeah.
And we just communicate so differently. It really is conversion therapy to make them, you know, more neurotypical, right? Which is, or allistic, which is not everybody who's, allistic's the word for not autistic. Not everybody who is allistic is neurotypical. There's still ADHD, there's still other neurotypes, right? So but a lot of these parents want a cure. And what autistic people are overwhelmingly begging for is that we don't want to be cured. I like the way that I am. I like the way that my brain works. There are some things that like non-autistic people do that just don't make any sense to me, like logically. Like, I'm like, why would you not tell people how you feel when they ask how you feel? Like, why would you be coy about it? Like, that doesn't make sense. Just be straight with me. But a lot of these parents, they don't like stimming. So the reason I'm playing with my hair so much is because I'm stimming. But I've had to, when I was a kid, I don't have the stems. I mean, I will do this sometimes when I'm really excited, but the stereotype is we're flailing all around. It's mostly a male presentation of autism, but then also, like, these parents don't want their kids stimming. Like, they will literally tie these kids down.
Wow. They
will lock their refrigerator and let their other kids have the key and not their autistic kid.
Can I ask you, what's the, like, I speak with my hands. I am not on the spectrum. It takes a lot. It's hard for me to sit still. I kind of like swivel a bit. Like,
do you have ADHD?
No, I don't. I don't have anything, but I'm an expressive. I'm animated. Here's the thing.
Everybody stims, but autistic people are just. It's just because people latch on to that thing. That, you know. It's a stereotype, and like, again, it's like, just because you have a child who's autistic, if you're not autistic, you don't know what our experience is. So you need to sit down and let us speak.
Right.
And so these parents who are supporting autism speaks, they are the ones who think vaccines cure autism. And you know what my mom has said? She said, I don't think vaccines caused you to have autism. She said, I think that my grandfather was autistic. I mean, the man had a brain of a calculator and, like, was just very kind of monotone, like, very much presented in a way that we would stereotypically think of an autistic male presenting. And it's genetic. It is genetic. So, like, if your kid comes up with autism, somebody had it. But, like, 50 years, like 80 years ago, or 100 years ago now, when my great grandfather was born, they didn't have it. They discovered autism during World War II, right? So it's like, we just didn't know. They were called, like, invalids, or, like, made to think that they were mentally, intellectually disabled or something. And a lot of them were very, very smart, right? So these parents are still using that debunked study that vaccines cause autism. Like, anytime you see an autism mom like Jenny McCarthy who thinks vaccines cause autism, they are aligned with Autism Speaks. And my mom literally said, well, I would have rather you been autistic than die of pertussis when you were a baby. Like, she's like, you're fine. You live on your own. You're functional. I mean, there's some things that I need help with. Like, there are some days where I'm like, Mom, can you help me with this? If it's like making appointments and I'm too anxious to do it or something. And she's fine doing that for me. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I function 100% like a neurotypical person does. But I will also say there's neurotypical people who have social anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
So it's
totally.
Like,
why do you think I wear live streams?
But it's just because these parents think that they know their child's autistic experience better than we do. And I'm actually in a Facebook group for autistics. You have to be autistic to be in there. That makes fun of these types of people, because that's the only way that we can cope with it. So I will say, like, it's like a hashtag not all parents. But if they're calling themselves an autism mom or an autism warrior mom, and moms with autism get mad at that too, because they're like, I'm technically an autism mom because I have autism.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean?
Yeah.
And so that's another thing. It's like just this whole thing that, oh, I'm the parent of this child, so I know about this thing better than the doctors who work with these people every day, or the people who are adults who actually suffer with it.
So I just wanted to wrap up the first part of this, the deception aspect. By the way, thank you for sharing that perspective, because that, in the child-free space, this is more conversations where I want to address, because we got a lot of requests to do child-free and disabled for child-free convention for this past year. But my thought process was let's get 2 under our belt before we do that topic, because I don't want to exploit people. It's really important that we establish trust, and so we can have those conversations. But they did naturally come up even within the event, so that was great, because that's not something I know about, but this is why it's important to have these points of view shared. So when it comes to, again, how does pronatalism, how it's presented to us, and again, keep in mind this is kind of like from the cis female perspective, how I view it. We're thrown all the magical, beautiful things at us. Information is withheld, like what it can actually do to you physically, mentally, emotionally, your relationships, all of that, and yes, people talk about it, but there's always a disclaimer that it's okay, that you're going to be made a martyr because you're sacrificing all those things about you in order to achieve parental status,
Even in I Regret Parenthood, they always end the posts, and I understand why they do this, even though it's anonymous. They always state, I love my kids.
Yes.
It's like, why are you not allowed to vent? And people assume that you don't love your kids. Like, my best friend's a mom. I talk about it all the time in chat. She texted me. She's like, I don't want to get ripped for this, like, to my mom friends, so I'm going to talk to you about it. And I'm like, that's fine. I'll be your ally there. Like,
yeah.
And it's like, obviously, don't do that to a child-free person unless you have an established relationship where that's okay. But a lot of the times, child-free women are actually a lot more accepting than moms are when moms need to vent. And it's like,
I would agree.
And I feel like that makes child-free people have to take on a lot more emotional labor. Like,
good point. Sorry, we just got an emergency alert. There's a dangerous person.
Oh, well,
alert. They just
if someone's climbing through your window during this live stream, then I'll let you know.
Yeah, our RCMP alert. Sorry, I'm like, what's my
You guys get alerts for dangerous people in Canada? Yeah. That's awesome. Well, you guys don't have like AR-15s running around all the time, so like everybody's.
I've never seen this before. I apologize. I'm a little flabbergasted.
We get Amber alerts.
We get Amber alerts too, but this is we get an RCMP, a dangerous person alert. Okay, well. My doors are locked. Okay. Wow, things just went dark. Something.
That's actually me being a child-free single lady is why I live in the building that I live in, because you can't even get to my floor without having a key to that floor. So
yeah.
Let's go to number 2.
All right.
Minimize or discourage access to non-cult sources of information, including internet, TV, radio, books, articles, newspapers, magazines, media, critical information. Former members, that's us, the ex-natalists. Actually, me and LeNora coined that term, guys, in case the word child-free becomes illegal.
Ex-natalist, yes. I quite like it, actually.
Keep members busy so they don't have time to think and investigate. And control cell phone with texting, calls, internet tracking. I don't think again, these are all just examples of this type. Number 2, minimize or discourage access to non-cult sources of information. I just want to throw in this disclaimer that like not every example obviously happens during pronatalism. Yeah. But I think a lot of this, especially the internet, TV, books, radio, articles, news, and it's even when AP took out that post that was like child-free is offensive, and all of us were like, it's really not offensive. We actually want you to call us that. Mm-hmm. Because I don't like without children, because it makes me feel like I've lost something. Like, yes. I have 2 fur babies. What are you talking about? I'm gonna tell anybody who interviews me from now on to call me a dog and cat mom.
Don't call me anything, mom. I mean, but again, it to your point, it's about like without, missing. It's what it's implied. That's the problem, and half the time it's the tone that they say it in.
I had a woman comment and say, "Well, a lot of childless people, you know, are, you know, hate children. And I said, well, no, actually, a lot of childless people desperately want a child.
Mm.
And it makes my heart hurt for childless people, because we had that panel at convention and I could hear the pain that some of them went through. And your conversation with Chasing Creation with Cody, it's like I could feel the pain that she went through before finally just reaching that acceptance point, and the things that they put their body through. They deserve to have their own community too. Just like we do.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and that's the, again, with the Child-Free Childless Alliance, and not even specifically to those panels, but it's just like the conversation in general, because they are two different camps. And again, you know, there are people who started out childless, or, you know, by circumstance, however they want to label it, and they have found a sense of peace and enjoyment in not having kids. But again, like to keep it like without kids, or however they want to word it, without understanding there's a very different energy. And I've stated this many times, not to be a gatekeeper, but as a content creator, as a collaborator, I do ask the people that I collaborate with, like, are you by choice or by circumstance? And the only reason I ask that is because there is a different energy that is in the content when it comes from a place of, I did want kids at one point and we tried, or it's not we were thinking about it. It's we tried and it didn't happen. That's a different, it's a different energy, not bad or good. It's just different, because I don't have that experience of wanting and then trying and it not working out. It's a different energy. And so
there's grief with that I don't think we necessarily, I think we had to deconstruct a little bit, but we didn't necessarily go through like grief to the
and so, yeah, like, I mean, again, not to speak for every child-free experience, because there are some child-free by choice people who do experience grief on a certain level, especially when it comes to how their families react. You know, for example, there's that, like, if they realize like their parents are disappointed, or someone in their family is disappointed, there is that sting of, and actually, I don't know if I was going to mention that in this section.
I think we're going to do emotional control.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll say that for emotional control. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, again, it's like they don't, and like the other thing is, I have noticed when I'm trying to sit there and educate, and I'm trying to be nice, and like I had people attack me on a TikTok that was actually defending parents to some extent. I was trying to introduce the nuance into the conversation of where children belong and where they don't.
Okay.
One of my big concerns is like child-free people in recovery who want to go somewhere where it's an adult-only space, but maybe don't want to go to a bar, because that can be super triggering to people.
Right.
Who are, you know, and they were like, and some parents were like, I'll bring my kid to the bar. But I also said in that
video,
is
this an American thing? I'm confused.
I think it's an entitled parent thing.
Okay.
Because they were the ones fighting me the most, and there were moms jumping in going, what is wrong with you? You know what I mean? Like, there were literal other moms jumping in going, you're going to knock back shots while your baby's strapped to your chest? That's weird. I would judge you too. Like, like, stop.
Agreed.
I was like, literally, like, child endangerment's not a cute look. Like, why are you proud of this? But anyway, like, beyond that, just those people, I was actually literally, I said, like, yeah, there are some child-free people who get mad that there is like a child existing in the target. Right? I've seen it.
Yeah.
What I was trying to explain to them, and I said, you can take your kids to family restaurants, take your kids to Target. All anybody is asking is when they're crying, they're probably overstimulated too. Just walk them outside for a minute and walk them back in. You signed up for this when you decided to become a parent. And honestly, my sister I think the reason I told my mom I didn't want to have kids when I was 3 was because my sister was a horrendous toddler. I don't know if anybody remembers the jelly that was in glass jars when we, like, in the 90s, like the Welch's and stuff. It all came in glass jars. She would throw those out of the cart. She would rip the diaper off in the supermarket. My mom paid for our groceries and left them at the grocery store, not once, but twice, because my sister was being a menace. She has literally told me, if you were not older and she was older, you would not exist.
Well, I'm glad you do exist. Just
I was a good toddler. I was like the best toddler. I would sit there with my
Wow.
I was already reading by like 3, like chapter books. So I would just sit there with my book or my little leap pad and like just entertain myself. And my mom was like, "Oh, it's easy." And then she had my sister and she was like, never again. My brothers were the same way. They're twins, but Robert, who's the 18 minutes older, was apparently like a super good toddler, and then my brother Zachary was like a super bad toddler, from what my dad says. But like my mom or my dad would just take my sister out.
Wow.
And she'd calm down and she'd go back inside. Like it's not like people are saying you can't have your kids. It's that we're also paying for the same experience.
Yeah, it's true. All right, let's move on to point number 2.
So compartmentalize information into outsider versus insider doctrine.
Wait, that's 3. Are we up 1?
We were just talking about 2.
Were we?
Yeah. Again,
I am paying attention.
Subsets. I think the conversation kind of rolls together.
Okay. It's like, wait a second. Well, can we former members? Wait a second.
Oh, former members. Us ex-natalists.
My brain was still on number 1, but I see how it does blend together.
So former members.
So this one kind of stumped us a little bit, just because we're like, well, no, this is the former members, like those who were child-free. Okay, you did touch on that already.
This is us when that's when I coined ex-natalist.
Yeah, okay. What the hell?
And I think like with me, it's like I obviously did go through a point where I thought I wanted kids, but like for a little bit. And and I started talking about it. And the thing that I had said to people was like, well, maybe one day, like I could see how I might enjoy being a mom.
Right.
But I also don't really know if I want to take on that stress. And people have thrown that back in my face. Yes.
You did mention that. So, okay, I'm just going to say a couple things, because my brain was still on number 1. I think after this segment, I'm going to need to take like a timeout just for a quick minute. Okay, so discouraging access to non-cult sources, because I wanted to say, to me, that's child-free content. They, like, if you think of it on a social media stance with algorithms and stuff, like as anyone that knows who's done any sort of attempt in social media, our stuff gets buried so fast. And I'm not saying the algorithm, like, look, no, I am saying the algorithm is designed for the family narrative, because that's what sells. Critical information, I mean, that's even like with the holding information, but
keeping members busy so they don't have time to think. And I would say, you know, moms are busy, but I also think it's just the constant barrage of family content, even for people who haven't had kids yet.
Well, and this is, to me, the basis of what I do anything. It's choice awareness, because I don't know how I fell into this role that I find myself in nowadays. I mean, I do. I just had this idea of like, I need to talk about this. I was not expecting it to get this far into it, but now, I mean, this is basically my life at this point, forever. But I am a naturally curious person. So when I think of, you know, being raised in a way where, sorry, I mean, it's hot under the collar here. You know, how I was raised, like, you're not taught to doubt. You are, like, doubting is wrong. It's evil. It's sinful. I am naturally curious. I want to ask questions. I ask a lot of questions just because I want to know how people think. I want to know why they do what they do. It also helps me learn. And you know, I'm in a fortunate position in life where I kind of get to do what I want. And so I ask people questions because that's what I want to do. But I like to explore the possibilities of what's out there, even if I don't understand it. And I feel in general, I'm kind of an exception that way, because we're not taught. And this is why I love child-free people, is because we are naturally kind of investigating something else besides what we're taught. So And that scares, I think that scares humanity in general, because they have never been encouraged to think beyond a certain point. And you look at everyday life, you know, we're all basically just trying to survive and make something happen. but it's that whole hamster wheel thing. So I just feel like when I think about how much energy I have not had to put in finding a significant other, finding a baby dad. Okay, I'll talk straight. I'll talk straight for his for a second. Holy crap, I'm gonna need a break in a bit. Okay, I have not had to put any energy finding a baby daddy. Okay, because I knew I didn't want to have kids. When I think about some other people in my life of any gender who are looking for somebody to procreate with, that is a lot of energy. That's keeping you busy. That to me is pronatalism keeping its members busy, trying to find someone to have children with. When you don't have that, to me, it's freed me up emotionally. Like when I knew at 22 that I didn't want to have kids, totally changed how I interacted with people, because I had that mindset of like, oh, again, talking straight here, the next guy that I meet is going to be, oh, that's the one. I was so afraid. I was like, I don't like any of these people. Like, just every time I'd meet somebody, because you have that in your head of like, oh, they might be the one you're going to fall in love with and you're going to want all these things. Totally crying bullshit on all of it.
Well, I told you how I approach relationships. It's just like whatever happens, bro. I'm not pressed anymore.
Me too.
But same. I almost said something. I'm going to just say it. A lot of people don't put a lot of thought into who their baby daddy is.
I would agree.
They just, get pregnant accidentally. Like more often than not, I see it all the time. They get pregnant accidentally, and they don't sit and think, would my partner also be a good parent? Does my partner want this child? And I do think that, I'm an advocate for choice.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that if women are able to have abortions, then men should be able to sign their rights away. And that is how I believe, because I believe in the choice for everyone.
Okay, say that again.
I believe women should be allowed to have abortions.
Okay.
Then if a woman tells a man that she's pregnant and he says, I don't want to be a father, he should be allowed to sign his rights away.
Okay. I thought that's what you said, but I just had to hear it one more time.
And I have to be fair about that. I cannot sit there and say, no, men don't get a choice. It's whatever the woman decides, because I believe in choice for everyone.
I mean, okay, so I have had, I've never had a pregnancy scare. My philosophy, or not my philosophy, my practice is for the most part, don't sleep with people who can't get me. I don't sleep with people who can get me pregnant. There's always an exception. But I've always been upfront about that conversation. Again, I've never had a pregnancy scare. But I have made it clear that if something were to happen, I would have an abortion and there would be no discussion. I mean, I would let them know, but ultimately I am not going to remain pregnant. I mean,
right,
again,
and obviously I don't think that men should be able to make women remain pregnant. That's
that's different.
That's sacrificing your body. But I do think that I don't like it when men are in and out of a child's life. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's fair. Or the men who get women pregnant and like want it and then like just bump off. But if it's communicated from the beginning, and I think this is something before people even have sex with each other, you need to sit down and say, do you want to be a parent?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
That's
not sexy.
That was the first. I had that conversation on the first date.
Oh, for me, it's before it even gets. Well, I don't date, so.
Well,
it's like,
I also tell people what I do.
Well, that's the thing. The two questions.
What's your job? I'm a child-free lifestyle advocate. Like, yeah. I think that we have it easy because
we do.
We're very
answers all questions.
But if I was in public, I tell people, put it on your dating profile. Mm-hmm. That's the question that I get all the time. I got it during convention too. Put it right on your dating profile.
But I hear now. I don't do online dating apps. I don't do anything in that space. I just kind of fall into weird relationships, and then get out of them. I heard though, but that doesn't necessarily compute, especially when you're dealing with men. I mean, I know there are guys in the audience.
Here's how I worded it. I am a child-free lifestyle advocate. I'm a child-free TikToker. That means I don't want children and I don't want to date anybody who does have children. After I get the hysterectomy, I'm hoping never to have to be on dating apps again because let me tell you, that's a headache. But if I ever was on dating apps again, I would, after the hysterectomy, say I don't have a uterus. That's really
yeah, but then they throw in the whole like adoption thing, or it's like, well, I have kids, therefore you can look after mine.
You want to know what I told my
No.
friend to do?
What?
I said, if they say that if your partner ever says that you want kids, I have a list of demands that no man is ever going to be willing. I want a prenatal agreement. I want $100,000 in my bank account before I even get pregnant that you have no access to. I want, I need you to prove that you have a college fund enough to pay for American college for this child. I also will not be taking any of the major child care responsibilities. It's like legal and signed, and I can guarantee you your partner does not want kids that bad.
Okay, I mean, I think that's hilarious for one, but I also have a question. Like, look, when things in the heat of the moment, are we actually like thinking about any of this shit? Seriously?
I am.
Okay. I kind of am too. I am like business first. Let's get all the paperwork done and then go for it.
I would say that most child-free people probably are people who are like child-free, not just fence sitters.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of parents or people who want kids eventually, I don't think they put nearly as much thought into it.
No, because I mean, like, I guess I do screen my sexual partners. It's kind of like, well, I mean, look, at this point, I think in my 20s, I wasn't, I mean, luckily when it came to men, okay, because, it's not just men that I sleep with, but when it did come to men, I just naturally everybody seemed to have a vasectomy or was sterile. So it worked out great. And then, especially now, like I've been more deliberate about it because of what I do. And I'm really conscious about that. And also, when it, like, I am pro-choice. I absolutely support abortion. Again, I'm in Canada. We're a pro-choice country. Doesn't mean everybody's pro-choice here, but it's covered by healthcare. I am very privileged that way. I also really do believe in prevention. So again, have never had a pregnancy scare because I've also been careful. Like, I mean, there have been a few times where I'm like, got lucky, but it's just like not lucky, but still.
This is another thing about information control. You are at your most fertile after you give birth, and they don't tell you that. So that's where we see these women who are having kids 9 months apart.
Right.
Because you don't get a period, but your body is dropping eggs.
Okay. Yeah.
Your hormones are up. You have the pregnancy hormones in your system for up to a year and a half after you give birth. So you're the most fertile up to a year and a half after you give birth. And your lining really hasn't all the way shedded yet. I've heard from women who gave birth that their postpartum periods when they start back up again are brutal. And my mom friend told me that. She said that she went longer than the recommended period of time because she was and she's one and done. And people literally pressure her. They go, "Oh, she needs a sibling," and she goes, "No, she doesn't. She's got a sibling with fur. She's got a cat." Like,
I am amazed
one and done moms get the same flack that child.
They do. A friend of mine who had one child said that she was only gonna have one child. She followed me on my other Childfree account before it got shut down, and she messaged me out of the blue one time, and she had been following my content. I didn't realize how closely, and she said that her only one that she was going to have was a year old, and she says that she was getting, when are you going to have a second? And she kind of needed to talk about it, so we did chat a bit about it, and I knew that happened, but to hear it from her and just how it made her feel, and then she went into her upbringing, and she was actually raised in the cult that I was too, so. And I knew her family, but I didn't know the details of like why they had so many kids and whatnot. And so she actually shared with me how her upbringing influenced her decision just to have one child. So, but bottom line is that, the fact that one isn't enough for people. I mean, by not them, but society, it's not enough. Heck, 3 isn't enough for some people. So, this is why I do believe in, child-free and parental alliance, whatever. Pardon my language today. Because I think we do have a lot in common, but because we're kind of pitted against one another, we need to kind of get over that so we can have these discussions that we can actually back each other up. You know what I mean? To a point.
You know, I've had parents look at my content and then message me and go, "You convinced me to be one and done." And I'm like, that wasn't my goal, but like, if my content is resonating with you, then like, cool. Like, and
Yeah.
the thing is that it's like literally immediate. Like, people give birth and I'm like, can't wait till they have a sibling. And it's like, can I heal first? Like,
Yeah. Oh, I know.
What?
It's silly.
Again,
Okay.
that's society just not thinking of mothers as people. They think of them as receptacles for babies. So here's our favorite part: encouraging spying.
Why do I keep thinking we were skipping stuff? 3.
Okay,
Go through 3.
Let's go 3. Compartmentalize
We're fine. We're fine.
Outsider versus insider doctrines. Ensure information is not freely accessible. Control information at different levels and missions within group, and allow only leadership to decide who needs to know what and when. I think that part of the reason that you think that we're on different parts is because all of these are so similar.
They are. Okay, that's what's throwing me off. I'm like, all right.
So we've kind of had that conversation already.
Okay.
But let's go
leadership though. Let's
talk about leadership. I think that's the mommy bloggers.
Okay, explain why.
Because a lot of parenting trends are started, like gentle parenting. That became a big thing on social media. And I'm not saying I'm against gentle parenting. I am all for gentle parenting. However, I also am not for gentle parenting to the point where you don't sit down and explain to a child why something's wrong, right?
Yeah, okay. So
gentle parenting is obviously harder. But I do think that, when I was 3, if my mom said that hurt somebody's feelings, I would like understand that it hurt their feelings, right?
Okay, again with the leadership thing. So now this is one area with my upbringing that I don't have. Like, we had overseers. There's not one particular. No, there is one person from like the 1900s. See, we were taught that this was something like everything was Bible based, and by that I mean literally like
is that person considered a prophet in the 1900s?
No, because here's the thing. So. And this is thank you, internet, for finally teaching me this, because I did not know the origin story of the cult I was raising, because there was no leader.
Well, because we control that.
I did find out who started it, but then they were removed, and then it kind of took on a life of its own. So how it works, because it is this, and again, I'm not going to say what there's no official name for the cult. Outsiders give it a different name, and if you guys want to know what it is, message me privately and I'll tell you, because again, my dad's still involved, and I am still tied to some people in there, so I will tell you privately, but I won't say it here. But anyway, there's every region has overseers. It's global. It's a small cult, but it's global, and there's overseers, and then the overseers get together, right? So then they determine what's what. And U.S. is a little bit different than Canada, and there's certain rules that you can do things in the States, like get divorced. You can go to the States, get divorced in some states, but you can't do that here. Anyway. So the leadership thing I don't have a lot of experience of, because we had, like I said, overseers, but there's a hierarchy. So
I hate that word.
I know this is, sometimes I want to vomit talking about this. I'm like, I can't believe this has been my life.
One day I will unpack that word, but that's not what we're talking about here.
So again, to bring it to like, who is the leadership in pronatalism? Like, to me, I think of lawmakers, but if you're bringing it to now, again, I don't want to bring like moms specifically, really, that culture.
It's Jerry Falwell.
It's what?
It's Jerry Falwell. It's the evangelical right. They're the leaders.
But is that global, or is that like where you are?
In America, I would definitely say it's definitely. But I also think Christianity has a very big role to play in this.
Oh, don't get me. Well, it's too late to get started on religion.
I would say. But like, I think on a more like surface level, I would say the leaders are like momfluencers, like people who are exploiting their kids, because they're the ones that you're seeing all day, every day, right?
You're right. See, yes, because there's a lot of us who can take what again, it depends on where you are, but we can look at the laws that are made. We can look at the, quote unquote religious leaders and go, this is all BS, and ignore it. But to your point, especially those of us who are online, or I mean, it's not even online. Look, you read magazines, you look at the content, look at the conversation in entertainment, whether it's in print or whatever form,
which is why
it's all focused on family.
I really, really appreciate that one mom who during the pandemic wrote the article that she was secretly obsessed with all of her child-free friends.
But that was a good article, but that even still ended, if I'm not mistaken, that still ended with
and I love my
wouldn't change
kids.
my life. Yeah, like it kind of.
I almost felt like that last paragraph she had to throw in because
Yeah,
the
that's what
parents
I
would
felt
get
too.
mad.
Yeah.
But I hate that. I wish that my one wish, I think, for even the I regret having children page is that people would stop feeling like they have to justify.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is a way in which moms can uphold and validate child-free women without people just assuming that they hate their kids from that. Because I know that that's why she included that last paragraph, because it really didn't feel like it went with the rest of the story, right?
It didn't, and that's why to me it kind of took away from the whole point of the article.
Right, and I don't think that she would have included that if it wasn't that other moms were going to jump down her throat.
Yeah, okay. I get that.
But it's like, how sad is it that parents who align with us and who support us have to be worried about all of these things?
Yeah. Well, and see, this is the thing, because we're, and by we, I just mean people in general. I don't necessarily mean anybody here or myself, but it's like, this is where communication is important. You know, we look at communication like in relationships and in business and what have you. Well, anytime you're interacting with someone, that's a relationship to some extent, in my opinion. But, you know, because we speculate about, let's say, parents speculate about us. This is just keeping it general, of course. But unless we talk and kind of compare notes and go, wait a sec, we're still going to be moving forward in our advocacy work, or just in our thought process, like, oh, this is how they're going to react to us, or that's how I'm going to react to them. We're all kind of defensive, you know. And I think when it comes to articles like that, where she felt she had to wrap it up in a way that made parents happy while acknowledging the child-free space, you know, it's just, for me, I just screams lack of communication between everybody.
Yeah, and I've noticed that it's like I was like literally defending parents, and they were jumping down my throat, going like, "Kids can be anywhere they want," and I'm like, "Did you listen to the video?
Yeah,
Did you hear me say I'm a child-free woman and immediately decide anything that I said was not worth listening to? Did you actually come here with good faith to actually listen, or did you just come here to attack me because it makes you feel better about your own decision?" And here's the thing, and I said, parents attack child-free people all the time.
Mm-hmm. And that's okay, apparently.
But as soon as child-free people say, I would prefer to be in spaces where kids aren't there, oh my God, you committed the holy sin. And I know. It's fine. And like when child-free people say that they hate kids, quote unquote, nobody's wishing malicious harm to your child. They're just saying, I don't want to be around them.
Yeah.
And yet there are still parents who say, well, I didn't like kids, and then I had my own and I loved them. I'm like, I'm more concerned about you having kids, knowing that you didn't like kids, than I am about child-free people who are staying child-free, getting sterilized, like not having kids, right? Because like to me, it's like, I'm confused.
Well, please because explain. They still don't like kids. They only like their own.
Right. And I'm like, that's kind of weird.
I like kids. I get along great with kids. Kids,
right? It's like I know more child-free women
want them in my house.
People in general who do interact with kids. Who it's like, why is that video that I posted like, oh look, it's me, a child-free woman sitting outside talking to kids? It's almost like we don't hate kids.
Yeah,
that blew
kids
up.
Kids come and talk to me all the time. It's funny.
So many parents were giving me compliments, saying like, oh, this is the child-free content I like to see, and I literally had to make another TikTok responding, being like, please do not give me compliments if it's going to be a backhanded insult to my own community, because this content is not for you. It's to educate you, but this content is not your safe space.
So, well, I'm not going to ask this question because it's kind of speculating, and we need to keep going because I'm going to need to take like a 3-minute break.
Can we talk about the encouraging?
Just a heads up behind the scene, behind backstage, Rebecca. I'm going to need you to fill in for me in a bit. So.
Well, I got my breaks. You get your break.
Okay.
Okay. So encouraging spying.
Right. Take it away.
Them just literally not telling me how they got into our support groups. We actually had. So I mod child-free women. I think I.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm one of the mods, and we had somebody in our group chat the other day. They sent a screenshot. It was a woman who answered like, yes, I am child-free. And then you look at the groups that she's in, and it's like gentle parenting, like how to raise kids for the next generation. It's like they're straight up lying to get in our spaces. What the hell is? I'm sorry, that had me heated. That had all of us heated.
That is so
Because
weird.
you're really just so obsessed with us that you need to come into our space to vent.
What movie is that? Oh, Mean Girls. You're so obsessed with me.
Are you? It's like I was like, Alexa, play "Obsessed" by Mariah Carey. Like, why are you so obsessed with me? Like,
well, now I'm thinking of a Taylor Swift song. He's so obsessed with me, and boy, I understand. Sorry. I need to eat something and okay. Oh, you know what? I just looked at my notes because there was a couple things that with this withholding information. We did talk about fence sitter already.
yeah. And it's like,
sorry, there is something. Your the miscarriage story. I have it on point number 3. Was that something we were going to talk about, or you want to save that for like the emotional section?
I was gonna save that for the
okay. I was just writing notes the last time we talked about this. Okay,
I bring it up a lot, and I'm finally getting comfortable speaking about it. And
that's good.
I spoke about it like right after it happened, and then didn't speak about it for about a year.
Yeah,
because I had to get restraining orders against people because of the harassment I received going into the child-free, not child-free people, but people who are not part of our community.
Right.
Just seeing my social media and literally harassing me. Like, I have a restraining order out because people could not handle that I was talking about my miscarriage, that I was grieving what had happened to me. Mm-hmm. I was grieving myself. I will never be the same after that experience.
Oh, of course not. I don't know why anyone would expect you to be. Yeah.
Myself, and even during and they have the restraining order has not stopped it. And like, to me, it's like, you do not get to decide how I deal with my own miscarriage.
Right.
Especially because none of these people were actually talking to me when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you saw my social media. You decided that you knew me a lot more than you actually knew me.
Mm-hmm.
And like, some of the harassment is like, well, what will the child-free community say? And I'm like, none of you have said anything except for, I am so sorry that happened to you, and we will be your support. And that is what I'm saying. I don't think that people who are not child-free have the same support system that we have. In a way, we have each other.
Okay. Yeah.
Like you said, women are always in competition, but not the women in our community that we talk to every day on Clubhouse.
No, I have to say, like, I've always gotten along well with women. I don't feel like women are like, I don't threaten people. So, I mean, unless you piss me off, then yes, but generally I'm not a threatening person. But and so I don't have a lot of experience as far as like negative interactions with females, but I really do enjoy, like, I've never been like a girl's well, I've been a girl's girl, but that's a whole different story. But that's sorry. Like, I'm not like let's all get the girls together and hang out. Like, I like to kind of hang out with everybody. I kind of feel more comfortable with men, to be honest. But that gets a little tricky sometimes. So I've never been like, let's hang out. It's like, let's all hang out with the girls. Like, I'm not like that. But since joining finding the child-free community, I am completely at ease with females, like, in a platonic level, right? So it's been really cool.
I have moms who tell me, like, I wish that I could have been part of the child-free space, because
child-free spaces are great.
And just my personal growth in this past year.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine being in mom spaces and having the same type of personal growth. Like, it's scary to me. I would have an infant right now, and I cannot imagine having that same level of support, especially moving 600 miles away from my family. Can you absolutely imagine? No.
I find, like, there's, again, and I will say, like, I'm really now only in the child-free spaces I create, but my child-free spaces are public, so it's kind of like everybody's welcome. I find that, because I do make sure that everyone can feel comfortable, you know, and there's no judgment. And I feel proud in saying, like, I get, like, really cool people around me, and not around me, but like the people that come into my spaces. Like, I really like, I think it's a really good, I think people are good people. There's always, like, the odd idiot, but, you know, it's just like, you can't be perfect all the time. But it's important to me that people feel like they can show up as themselves without having to change anything about them. But everyone, I demand a level of respect. Not just towards me, but I demand a level of respect for what's being shared, because we're all different. We all have different experiences. We all view being child free a little bit differently. And I want everyone to feel like can voice it. If someone is starting to threaten that, I will take action. And
Right.
you know, I'm very protective of these spaces, and like I said, most things that I do are public because I want everyone outside of the community even to see this. But it's I feel like there's a certain level, like within the child free spaces, like the last few years, it's really cool, and a lot of it has. I mean, it's to do with the people, like, you know, and I just I love it. It's I mean, that's why I still do this.
And
you know,
you know, I felt gagged for so long.
yeah, I can imagine.
Because
Well,
of the
I've been there.
harassment. That's the reason
Yeah.
I applied for my gun license.
Yeah. You know, and this is the thing. Like, this is what really excites me, even with developing Childfree Media, and even this particular conversation, because I too know what it's. Well, I know what terrible sex joke. If you don't want to know, plug your ears. I know what it's like to be gagged. But also that's more for Brianna's benefit, if she's still in the audience.
I also know what it's like to be gagged. Don't tell anybody.
We need a break soon.
All right, let's get through these last. Well, we need to talk about. I mean, the spying is honestly impose a buddy system. They don't really do that, but report deviant thoughts, feelings, and actions to leadership. I don't think it's necessarily leadership, but I think it's like reporting deviant thoughts to everybody. Like, you know,
well, this is where, like, this is like this. Like, look at the scary mummy confession boards. Everything has to be anonymous. Like, what parent generally can come out and say, "I regret this," because this is like, to me, the deviant thought thing. Again, coming from my upbringing. This is where you weren't allowed to doubt. If you were having those thoughts, you would be lucky if you found somebody else who was a member who you guys could kind of confide in each other. But pardon the pun, God forbid, someone overhear you, and that gets out to the community, like rumors,
Right.
everything. And then you are in some serious shit. And I feel like with, you know, parents not being able to express how they feel, or even fence sitters for that matter, you know, like that's problematic when you cannot be honest and say, you know what, I don't think I want to have kids, or I regret that. I mean, okay, it's not necessarily being reported to authorities, but it's going to, if you are in one of those groups that are supposed to be, you know, parental groups, whatever it looks like, if you say something, the backlash that you get, and this is where I agree with you, that I feel like child-free spaces can be some of the most supportive spaces ever.
And
you know,
the other thing is just the amount of parents trying to get into them.
Into the child-free spaces?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Just the amount of them that we've had to be like, you're not one of the. There was a group on Facebook that was being run by a mother.
I think I know which one you're talking about. I won't say it. But okay.
The one where they complain about other child-free people.
Oh, no, I was thinking about something else. I didn't know that. Is that still active?
No.
Okay.
Because she got called. One of the members.
Good.
Somebody went in, like another child-free person went in and was like,
Yeah.
excuse me, is this you in your profile picture with your son?